The mind is a citadel, a temple, a stronghold, a sanctuary, place where no enemy can enter unless the gatekeeper himself throws the door wide open. In the days when the marble columns of Rome touched the clouds and the sound of sandals echoed through her streets, there was a teaching whispered not in the Senate, nor in the arenas, nor among the bustling forums, where merchants shouted their prices. No, it was a teaching passed quietly from one philosopher to another, from master to student, beneath shaded porticos in candlelit chambers, or on long walks by the Tiber as the sun dipped below the 7 hills. It was said that every man carries within him a fortress, not one made of stone, not one guarded by walls of marble, nor defended by iron gates or sharpened spears, but a fortress far more sacred, far more invincible, the mind. The mind is a citadel, a sacred bastion where no enemy can enter unless the gatekeeper himself opens the gate. The wise of old, Zeno, Cleanthes, Epictetus, Seneca, Marcus Aurelius, they all spoke of it, though in different words. The first and greatest war, they taught, is not fought on open fields, nor in the marble halls of empires. It is fought within, every day, every moment. For what is it that truly breaks a man? Is it the sword of an enemy? Is it the loss of gold? Is it the crumbling of his house? Or the betrayal of his friends? No, these things have no power in themselves. They are only what we call externals. It is the undisciplined mind that magnifies these blows. It is the open gate that allows suffering to march in like an invading legion. Imagine a city whose walls stand tall and strong, but the watchman has fallen asleep. The gates are left unguarded. Do the walls matter then? Will strength of stone save those inside if the gates are open to every thief, every liar, every enemy that approaches? No. Likewise, what is the use of a man having strength of body if his mind is a ruin? What use is a fortune in gold if fear controls his every step? What good is reputation if he is a slave to the opinions of the mob? The Stoic teaches that the mind is sovereign, that no man, no king, no mob, no misfortune, no plague, no poverty has dominion over the citadel of the soul unless we open the gate ourselves. And yet, how few guard this fortress? How often does a man rise in the morning only to throw the gates wide without knowing it? Thoughts come uninvited. I am not enough. I must be liked. If I do not have this, I am worthless. They reject me. I am nothing. These thoughts are like marauders at the gate. They dress as friends. They whisper sweetly. But once inside, they ravage the temple. They set fire to reason. They steal peace. The man who does not stand watch becomes prisoner within his own house. The ancients warned, guard your mind as you would guard your city from barbarians. Not every thought deserves entry. Not every feeling is truth. Not every desire is worthy of pursuit. The battle begins not when the enemy reaches the walls. The battle begins the moment a thought approaches the gate. Who sent you? Asks the vigilant guardian. Is you here in service of virtue, or are you a spy for vanity, greed, anger, or fear? The thought cannot answer with integrity. The gate remains shut. This discipline is not easy. It is not the work of a day or a week. It is the work of a lifetime. Epictetus once said, if a man has surrendered his mind, then no army need conquer him, for he is already defeated. Think on this. A merchant loses his ship to a storm. He curses the gods. He curses fate. His mind collapses, not because the sea took his cargo, but because his peace was tethered to something fragile, something outside himself. A senator falls from favor, his name dragged through the mud of gossip. He trembles, he begs, he bribes, not because his power was taken, but because his identity was built upon the applause of the crowd. A soldier grows old, his sword hand weakens, his back bends, he falls into despair. not because time claimed his strength, but because he had mistaken the strength of the body for the strength of the soul. The unguarded mind is like a house whose doors are open to every passerby. Thieves come, they take joy, they take courage, they take dignity, until the owner, once proud, now wanders his own home as a beggar. But the man who guards the gate, he is free. Let the world rage, let fortune rise and fall. Let others slander him, betray him, forget him. The fortress holds. Why? 'Cause he knows that the judgments of others are theirs, not his. That fortune may take what is borrowed, wealth, reputation, even life, but cannot touch what was never hers to claim. His reason, his virtue, his choice, his soul. This man watches his thoughts as a general watches his borders. He does not become his thoughts. He does not mistake passing clouds for the sky. A thought comes. I will fail, he replies. That is not yet known. What is known is that I will act with courage. A thought comes. They mock me, he replies. Let them. Their tongues are not my master. A thought comes. I need this to be happy, he answers. Need or desire. Happiness is the harmony between my actions and my virtue, not in what fortune grants or withholds. This is not coldness. This is not indifference. This is clarity. This is sovereignty over oneself. For the mind is not meant to be a battlefield where every emotion runs wild, nor is it a market where every passing desire sets the price. The mind is meant to be a temple, a citadel of reason, a place where only that which serves the highest good is allowed to enter and dwell. But do not mistake this for a life without struggle. No, the gates will be tested every day. The merchant walks the forum, the scent of spices, the gleam of gold. Temptation knocks. Buy this, have this, then you'll be enough. The gatekeeper answers, my worth is not for sale. A young man walks the street. Others laugh at him, call him fool, call him coward, mock his lack of titles, his simple clothes. Insult is the stone hurled at the gate. The gatekeeper answers, their words are wind. I remain. A woman stands alone. Love has left her. Loneliness claws at her heart. A voice whispers, you are unworthy, forgotten, empty. The gatekeeper answers, I am whole. I was always whole. To master the gate is to master life. For when the mind is free, no chain can bind the body. When the mind stands guard, the winds of fortune pass like storms against the mountain, loud, furious, but powerless. And if a man fails, if a thought slips past, fear or vanity or anger finds its way inside, then the gatekeeper does not despair. He does not curse himself. He does not collapse. He stands. He clears the hall. He learns, returns to the gate stronger, wiser, more vigilant, because perfection is not the Stoic's goal. Mastery is not the absence of failure. It is the refusal to be ruled by failure. To be the sentinel of the mind is to accept that the siege never ends, but neither does the strength to endure it. The mind is a fortress. Guard its gates. Stand watch. Decide what enters and what must be turned away. In this, there is freedom. In this, there is peace. In this, there is a kind of power that no king can grant, no mob can steal, and no empire can destroy. But a fortress, no matter how strong, is only as enduring as the vigilance of its guardian. The gates of the mind are tested not once, but every day. The enemy does not come dressed as an enemy. It comes clothed as comfort, as pleasure, as ambition, as fear, as the sweet voice of desire. And so begins the siege. In a distant province of the empire, there lived a young man named Tiberius, born not of noble blood, nor of a warrior's lineage. He was the son of a merchant. Raised among the chatter of markets, the glint of silver coins, the bargaining cries of buyers and sellers, His father taught him to trade, to weigh gold, to measure cloth. Okay. But no one had taught him how to weigh the value of his own soul. As Tiberius grew, so too did the whisper of the world. You must rise, it said. You must be seen. You must be envied. Look at your peers. They wear fine garments. They dine at the tables of senators. They are praised, admired, desired. Are you content to be less? The whisper became louder, louder, until it no longer sounded like the world, but like his own voice. You must be more, where you are nothing. And so, the gates of Tiberius's mind, once guarded in the innocence of childhood, began to creak open, a small crack. At first, just a longing for better robes, then for recognition, then for the fleeting glances of women whose eyes were trained to follow wealth. Desire is never content to visit. It wishes to live within. It marches through the open gates. It builds its own palace in the heart. And once desire has made a home, its kin follow. Envy, restlessness, greed, fear of loss, fear of being unseen. They do not arrive as conquerors, they arrive as guests. Tiberius soon found himself walking a path that no longer felt like his own. Every day was a weighing of worth, but not worth measured by virtue, by discipline, by integrity, instead by the eyes of others, by the coins in his pouch, by the nods of approval in the market. When praise came, he soared. When it was absent, he withered. A prisoner bound not by chains, but by his own craving to be seen, to be admired, to be affirmed. But even as the walls of his inner fortress grew thin, a part of him, a small, uncorrupted voice, remained, a memory of something different, a sense that life was meant for more than this endless chase. And so, one evening, as the sun dipped beyond the hills, Tiberius walked beyond the city, past the vineyards, past the temples, to a quiet place where the old philosophers gathered. There he met Aelius, an old Stoic, a man whose face bore the lines of countless winters. K's robe was simple, whose eyes held the calm of a man unshaken by the winds of fortune. Tiberius spoke. I am tired, tired of the chase, tired of the hunger that never ends. I have what others say I should have, and yet I am hollow, empty. Aelius listened, then spoke words that would forever change the course of the young man's life. You have guarded every gate but the one that matters. You guard your house from thieves. You guard your coin from tricksters. You guard your reputation from slander. But you have left the gates of your mind wide open. And now, every petty desire, every shallow fear, every empty craving has walked in. And together they dine at your table as lords. Tiberius lowered his gaze. Then how? How does one reclaim the gates? Aelius smiled. With the same discipline as any soldier. Begin with a question. When a thought approaches, when a desire stirs, you ask, ... Who sent you? Are you a messenger of reason? Or are you a spy for vanity, for gluttony, for greed? The young man nodded slowly. And if the answer is unclear, then you do not open. Better to let a thought wait outside than to let a poison sit within. Aelius continued. Do you understand? The mind is not a harbor for every ship. It is not a marketplace where every merchant may trade. It is a fortress, a sacred temple. Only that which serves virtue, discipline, courage, and wisdom should be allowed to enter. If a thought diminishes your peace, if it whispers that your worth depends upon what you own, how you look, or how others see you, ... then it is a liar. And no liar should cross your gates. Tiberius felt the weight of those words settle into his bones. The battle was not out there, it was here, within, but it was not yet over. The world would still knock. Desire would still come dressed as opportunity. Fear would still whisper in moments of weakness. But now he understood. He was the sentinel. He was the keeper of his own soul. A man cannot always control the winds, Aelius said, but he can decide whether to raise his sails or drop anchor. He cannot control the words others speak, but he can choose whether they enter his temple or are left at the gate. And he cannot control the tides of fortune, but he can control whether his peace is tied to them. From that day forward, Tiberius began a new kind of labor. Not the trading of goods, but the trading of thoughts, weighing each carefully, accepting only those aligned with reason, refusing those born of vanity. When envy knocked, he asked, "Are you here to serve my growth, or to poison my joy?" When fear whispered, ... He replied, "You may exist, but you will not command." When desire flared, he answered, ... "I will consider you, but I will not kneel." Slowly, the halls of his mind grew quiet. The din of endless craving faded. In its place came stillness, the kind of stillness that cannot be purchased, that cannot be given by others, only built. Brick by brick, thought by thought. And in that stillness, Tiberius discovered something he had never truly known. Freedom. Not the freedom to do whatever the world suggested, but the freedom to not be ruled by it, to walk through the forum, surrounded by noise, by temptation, by mockery, by praise, ... and yet remain untouched. Not because he had withdrawn from life, but because he had fortified the only thing that ever truly belonged to him, his mind, his soul, his fortress. Time passed, seasons turned, empires shifted. The market bustled, fortunes rose and fell. And yet, within the mind of Tiberius, something remained unchanged. A fortress, no longer fragile, no longer vulnerable to every gust of fortune, but solid, rooted, untouchable. He had come to understand what so few ever grasp, that the true battle of life was never with other men, never with the Senate, nor with the crowds, nor with the fickle hand of fate. The true battle was always and only within. To guard the gates, to master the halls, to rule the inner fortress. Tiberius now walked the streets of the city, not as a man desperate to be seen, not as a prisoner of desire, but as a sovereign of himself. The world still offered its distractions. The whispers still came. Look at him. He is richer. Look at her. She is more admired. Look at them. They feast while you labor. But the whispers had lost their teeth because they could no longer pass the gate. When envy knocked, it was met with silence. When fear stirred, it was answered with presence. When desire flared, it was weighed and either dismissed or transformed. He came to learn that desires were not enemies in themselves, Only when left unexamined, unchecked, and ungoverned did they become tyrants. A desire to grow could be a servant of wisdom. A desire for beauty could be a servant of gratitude. A desire for recognition, if purified, could become a drive for excellence, not vanity. But when these desires sought to be kings, when they sought to rule rather than serve, the gate remained closed. This was mastery. This was the art of the inner fortress. One day, an old friend approached him in the forum. "Tiberius," they said, "how is it that you seem untouched by all this? The taxes, the gossip, the games of the Senate, the winds blow, yet you stand unmoved." Tiberius smiled, "'Cause the winds blow outside my walls, not within." "But do you not worry?" the friend pressed. "Do you not fear the collapse of the market, the betrayal of allies, the judgment of others?" Tiberius answered calmly, "I do not control the market. I do not command the tongues of others. I do not hold the reins of fortune. To tie my peace to those things would be to build my house upon sand. My peace is built upon stone, upon that which I do control, my judgments, my choices, my actions, my response." The friend shook his head. "But how can a man live this way, detached from the world?" Tiberius placed a hand upon his shoulder. "Who said anything about detachment? I do not withdraw from life. I engage fully. I trade, I speak, I labor, I love, I grieve, but I do not grant the world the power to dictate my inner state. When fortune is kind, I am grateful. When fortune turns, I endure. In both, I remain the same, whole, unshaken. The friend was silent, because he knew, deep down, that this was the strength every man longed for, yet few ever sought. That most spent their days fortifying their houses, fortifying their wealth, defying their reputation, while leaving the fortress of the soul undefended, open to the siege of every passing mood, every insult, every misfortune, and every fleeting desire. Tiberius turned his gaze toward the hills beyond the city. The sky was vast, the earth steady beneath his feet. He understood now what the Stoics meant when they said, "A man's worth is measured not by what he owns, but by how he governs himself." This was not a cold life. It was a free one. Free from being ruled by anger, free from being ruled by craving, free from the tyranny of public opinion, free from the fear of loss, free not in the sense of doing whatever impulse demanded, but free in the only way that mattered. The freedom to choose one's response. The freedom to remain in harmony with one's own values, regardless of circumstance. And in that freedom, there was a peace deeper than pleasure, a joy quieter than excitement, a strength greater than force. Tiberius knew that storms would come. He knew that fate still carried its daggers. Illness, loss, death. No man escapes these. But when they come, they will find him ready, not because he is immune to pain, not because he does not feel sorrow, but because he has built something within that cannot be taken, a fortress of reason, a citadel of virtue, sanctuary of dignity. And as long as breath remains, that fortress stands. The world may burn, empires may crumble, names may be forgotten, but the mind, disciplined and guarded, remains unconquered. This is the final lesson, the ultimate mastery. To become the keeper of one's own soul, the sentinel of the inner fortress. To live, as the Stoics taught, with strength, with duty, and with unbreakable character.